Hi everyone, welcome back to DGMZ, Diwan-e-Ghalib, Meri Subani. To all our returning viewers, we are very happy you could join us again. And to the new viewers, we are delighted you discovered the podcast and decided to tune in for the first time. Now, if you were with me in the previous episode, you know that currently we are going through Ghazal 30 from Diwan-e-Ghalib, Jab Ba-Taqrib-e-Safar Yaar ne Mahmil baandha. Last time we covered the first couplet. Today we are going to get into the second couplet. As always, I'm going to read the couplet first and then we will get into the keywords, key concepts and finally the DGMZ impression. So, this is how it goes. Ahl-e-Binash ne Ba-Hairat-Kadaa-e-Shokhi-e-Naaz. Ahl-e-Binash ne Ba-Hairat-Kadaa-e-Shokhi-e-Naaz Jauhar-e-Aaina ko Tuuti-e-Bismil baandha. Let's start with a quick approximate translation. People with insight that were standing inside the house of wonder caused by mischief and coquetry tied the polish marks of the mirror to a wounded parrot. I'll give you a few seconds to let that sink in. It is one of those couplets which comes with a notorious reputation of not making sense, too much thrown in by Ghalib into a mixing pot with no tangible results. Well, that's the reputation. Okay, so post that approximate translation and a fair warning on the reputation of the couplet, let's start getting into our keywords. First word, Ahl-e-Binash. Ahl is a group of people, a large collective, a large group of people, and Binash is sight. Not just regular sight, but sight which is a vision, which is intuitive, right? So insight is more like it. So Ahl-e-Binash becomes people with vision, people with insight, people with wisdom, people with intelligence. इस पर अमजद अशरफ मल्ला का ये शेर, कहा जब अहले-बिनिश ने जलाले पादशाही क्या, गुबारे राह उठाकर हम हवा में तब उड़ा बैठे. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, when the collective of wise people, when the collective of the intelligent ones asked me, what kind of royal lineage do you come from? What is your royalty, right? I picked up a fistful of dust and I let it blow in the air. Beautiful couplet, amazing couplet. Of course, the symbolism is the royalty that I come from is dust. जगत मोहन लाल रवा का ये शेर, अनासीर हंसते हैं, दुनिया की वुसअत मुस्कुराती है, किसी से पूछते हैं अहले-बिनिश जब निशान मेरा. Another good one. The approximate translation is, the elements of this world, laugh, and the entire expanse of this universe smiles when these people, these wise people, this collective of wise people come and ask them about my nishan. I'm thinking about my traces. About my traces. Where can we find him? Where is he? Where can we find a trace of him? That's when the elements of the world laugh and the expanse of the universe smiles. Beautiful couplet. Moving on to the next keyword, Hayrat-Kadaa. Hayrat is surprise, astonishment, bewilderment, amazement, right? Wonder. And Kada is any kind of house. So Hayrat-Kadaa becomes house of surprise. बसत भोपाली का ये शेर, अल्लाह रे तंजीम हैरत कदाए हस्ती, देखो तो हकीकत है, समझो तो फसाना है. Another good one. Another good one. So the approximate translation is, oh my God, the decorum, the discipline of this house of wonder that we call life. Hayrat Kadae Hasti. Hayrat wonder, Kada house, Hasti is life. Dekho to hakikat. If you see it, it seems like reality. Samjho to fasana. Fasana hai. If you understand it, then you realize that it is just a tale. It is just a story. There is no reality to it. So that takes care of Hayrat Kadaa. Moving on to Shokhi-e-Naaz. Now, it is a very common word complex used in Urdu poetry, usually used in context to the beloved. इस पे इंशाअल्लाह खां ईशा का ये शेर, चश्मो अदा ओ गमजा शोखियो नाज पाँचों, दुश्मन है मेरे जी के बंदा नवाज पाँचों. The approximate translation is your eyes, your graces, your winks, your coquetry, and your playfulness. All five of these are as if enemies of my life, enemies of my heart. All five of these are five enemies of my heart, five enemies of my life. Bandha Nawaz, O cherisher of servants, O dear one, right? And then मुशाफी गुलाम हमदानी का ये शेर, शोखी और नाज और अदा तुझ में है या एक कहरे खुदा तुझ में है. Of course, addressed to the beloved, the approximate translation is it that you have grace and playfulness and coquetry and mischievousness in you, or is it that you embody in yourself the calamity of God himself, right? So that is Shokhi-e-Naaz. Moving on to Jauhar. Now Jauhar translates to essence, essence of anything, metal of something, the edge of something, the constituent substance of something. इस पे चकबस्त ब्रज नारायण का ये शेर, अदब तालीम का जौहर है, जेवर है जवानी का. गुड वन. अदब तालीम का जौहर है, जेवर है जवानी का, वही शागिर्द हैं जो खिदमत उस्ताद करते हैं. So adab is respectfulness, right? So respectfulness is the edge, is the power of learning, and respectfulness is the ornament of youth. Only those students are worth their while who spend time in serving their masters. Moving on to the next word, Aina. Now, Aina is a mirror, but also used as a word for reflection, a word for something clear, illuminated, bright, something which is a true copy, a true duplicate. जॉन इलिया का ये शेर, किस लिए देखती हो आईना, तुम तो खुद से भी खूबसूरत हो. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, why do you look at the mirror? You are more beautiful than yourself. And of course that extended meaning, right? That you are more beautiful than your own reflection in the mirror. गुलजार का ये शेर, आईना देख कर तसल्ली हुई, आईना देख कर तसल्ली हुई, हमको इस घर में जानता है कोई. Another good one. The approximate translation is, once I looked at the mirror, I was reassured that in this house there is somebody who knows me, who is familiar to me. What a couplet. All right, that takes care of Aina. Moving on to Tuuti. So Tuuti is parrot. Tuuti is parrot. इस पे मिर्ज़ा गालिब का शेर, ना हुई हमसे रकम हैरते खते रुखे यार, सफ़ाए आईना जौला गाहे तूती ना हुआ. It's a complicated one, probably unfair to put it here, but let's give you the translation. We could not do the writing that was required to describe the beloved's cheek. Alas, the page of the mirror did not serve as the place for the movement of parrot. There's a lot of depth to it, but just the translation for the keyword for now. Moving on to the last keyword of this couplet, Bismil. Bismil is injured, restless, wounded. Now, इस पे मुबारक अजीमाबादी का ये शेर, जो निगाह नाज का बिस्मिल नहीं, दिल नहीं, वो दिल नहीं, वो दिल नहीं. So, the approximate translation is that which is not wounded by the mischievousness of her eyes is not a heart, is not a heart, is not a heart. आदिल मंसूरी का ये शेर, बिस्मिल के तड़पने की अदाओं में नशा था, मैं हाथ में तलवार लिए झूम रहा था. The approximate translation is, the wounded one had a kind of intoxication in their writhing in pain. And watching that, I, with the sword in my hand, was also swaying in response. And the last one, Chakbast Braj Narayan का शेर, नया बिस्मिल हूँ मैं वाकिफ नहीं रस्म शहादत से, बता दे तू ही ए जालिम तड़पने की अदा क्या है. Good one. Approximate translation is, I am a newly wounded one, and hence I am not aware of the principles of execution, slaying, right? You, O torturous one, why don't you tell me what is the way to writhe in pain for once you are wounded? Because I am new at being wounded. Alright, so that takes care of all the keywords. Let's start getting into our impression. First line, Ahl-e-Binash ne Ba-Hairat-Kadaa-e-Shokhi-e-Naaz. People of vision, people of intellect, wisdom, standing in the house of wonder, created by mischief and coquetry. So the first line starts with Ahl-e-Binash, which literally translates to people who can see. Now this seeing is not the usual kind of seeing associated with sight. This seeing is associated with vision. Ahl-e-Binash are the people with vision and insight, people with intelligence, people who are astute. These are people with an all-seeing eye. Nothing escapes them, nothing is hidden from them. See how Ghalib uses this in another couplet. Ahl-e-Binash ko hai तूफान हवादिस मकतब, लुत्माए मौज कम अस साइलिए उस्ताद नहीं. So the approximate translation is, to the people of insight, these storms in the ocean are almost a learning school. The storms that they face are learning grounds for them, as if it is a school. And the big buffet of waves, high, treacherous waves that are served to them in the storms they face are like slaps from a teacher. By extension, training, disciplining from a teacher. So Ahl-e-Binash learn on ground. Everything which other people call as trials and tribulations and bad luck and misfortune, Ahl-e-Binash call it training grounds, Ahl-e-Binash call it school, Ahl-e-Binash call it slaps from the master in order to discipline them, train them, teach them. So Ahl-e-Binash is the first person in the couplet. This is what everything is happening to. So they are part of the who or con in the couplet. Now Bairat-Kadaa is the word complex from where the twists and turns begin in this couplet. This couplet, as many other Ghalib couplets, comes with, like we told you, a notorious reputation of being a mind twister, and it has been categorized by many as not making much sense or logic either superficially or deeply. Back to Bairat-Kadaa. We at DGMZ believe that the more we understand this word complex, the lesser we will find this couplet to be nonsensical. So let's spend time on Bairat-Kadaa. Like we said, Bairat-Kadaa literally is house of surprise, house of wonder, house of amazement. But in Urdu poetry, Bairat-Kadaa is a way to refer to, yes, house of wonder, but world. House of wonder as in the world around. मोहम्मद आजम का ये शेर, हैरत-कदाए-दहर है एक ख्वाब का आलम, देखा जो इस आलम में अजब है भी नहीं भी. The approximate translation is, this wonder, this house of wonder called life is having an atmosphere of a dream. If we see it, there is a very strange environment in it where there are things that are strange, and then there are things, the same things are not strange. Ajab bhi hai aur nahi bhi. So you might find them strange at times, and then at times you might not find them strange. They made sense to you at times, and then they stop making sense to you. So that is what this house of wonder of life is. That is what the environment inside it is. मीर हसन का ये शेर, हाल क्या पूछे है हैरत-कदाए-दहर का, देख आईना यहाँ का हर एक दीदाए हैरान तो है. The approximate translation is, what do you ask me about the state of the house of wonder of life? Look yourself. The mirror in this house is but a dilated pupil. A dilated pupil in astonishment, a dilated pupil in amazement, in wonder. The mystical Bairat-Kadaa, which amazes and astonishes everyone at its perplexing, confusing, bewildering workings, is our very own world. There is no bigger wonder house than the world we live in. Such is the wonder and astonishment of this wonder house we call world, that it makes us see things that do not exist. And in parallel, it also makes us blind to things that do exist. Such is the Creator's biggest creation, a house of wonder called world, that one can never be sure of what they are seeing and what they are missing. The lover, in Urdu poetry, navigates this house of wonder alongside traveling the path of love with a bewilderment that is probably unmatched. शाद अजीमाबादी का ये शेर, मैं हैरत और हसरत का मारा खामोश खड़ा हूँ साहिल पर, दरियाए मोहब्बत कहता है आ कुछ भी नहीं, पायाब है हम. पायाब है हम. So the approximate translation is, I, inflicted with amazement and desire, silently I'm standing at the banks of a huge ocean. And this ocean of love keeps telling me, come in, don't worry, we are but a shallow river. Coaxing the lover to jump in, saying that we are just a shallow river, 1 feet of water, don't you worry, come in. But ये है क्या, आग का दरिया और डूब के जाना. Right? So that's a good one. अली राकी का ये शेर, हैरत कदे में ऐसे नज़र आ रहा है दिल, जैसे किसी ख्याल से टकरा रहा है दिल. The approximate translation is, in the house of wonder, the heart appears as if it is colliding with desire itself, with wish itself, with want itself. Now this Hayrat-Kadaa, house of wonder, gets its bewildering wonderment from its creator. There is a quirkiness, a mischief, a tendency to paint out of the lines that becomes increasingly evident as one experiences this house of wonder more and more. In fact, Ghalib starts his Diwan, first Ghazal, first couplet, talking of this exact coyness of the creator. नक्श फरियादी है किसकी, शोखी तहरीर का, कागजी है पैरहन हर पैकरे तस्वीर का. The approximate translation is that each and every sign and symbol is complaining, is pleading against whose mischievous writings, right? And the complaint has embodied the garment of paper. And of course, there's a whole story, etc., going in it. But the fact of the matter is, first couplet, this is how Ghalib pays ode to God, saying that, yes, fantastic creation, but you have shown a kind of mischievous coquetry in it, right? Being God and all, you should have been a little more serious about this job. But it seems in your playful state of mind, you just went ahead and whipped up this universe with so many voids and gaps and areas of focus and improvement, right? It's a good one. Now, the Shokhi that is playing in Naqsh Faryadi is the same Shokhi that plays in today's couplet also. As always, first line builds layer by layer. First layer is the group of people who are all seeing, wise, intuitive, and insightful. Second layer is that these people are inside a wonder house. House of wonder. And the third layer is that this house of wonder is made in coquetry and mischief and playfulness, or through coquetry, mischief, and playfulness. Very interesting visual emerges in this first line, where an elite, creme de la creme group of wise people are standing inside a house of wonder that is challenging and testing their intuition, their intellect, their intelligence, their insight, all the eyes, with its playful mischief. The house of wonder is testing these people. Can you figure me out? Am I making sense? Can you make sense of this? Can you decipher this? Can you decode this? Right? That is the type of visual that is emerging. Ravish Siddiqui का ये शेर, हम ऐसे सर फिरों को काम क्या है मर्गो हस्ती से, ये सब है शोखी-ए-नाज़ मसीहाई समझते हैं. The approximate translation is that crazy people like us have no business getting into the nitty-gritty of life and death. These concepts are responsibility of that Shokhi-e-Naaz Masihai, that God who has a playful, mischievous temperament. He's the one who is going to understand all this. He's the one who understands all this. We, lovers, with a mind in a tizzy, we have no business trying to understand and decipher it. We are not interested. So that is the first line. Ahl-e-Binash ne Ba-Hairat-Kadaa-e-Shokhi-e-Naaz. These wise people standing in the house of wonder are experiencing the mischief, the playfulness of the creator of this house of wonder. Let's move on to the second line. Jauhar-e-Aaina ko Tuuti-e-Bismil baandha. Tied the polish marks on the mirror to a wounded parrot. Yeah, I know. Now, second line is very interesting as it sets up the visual where you can see the Ahl-e-Binash of the first line succumbing and losing to the mischief and coquetry of the creator of the house of wonder. Ghalib starts the second line with Jauhar-e-Aaina. Such a strong, literal and metaphorical concept that a whole episode could just be about this and this alone. Jauhar, as we covered in the keywords, is the essence of something, the matter of something, the metal of something, the substance of something. Jauhar is an interesting aspect in relation to mirror, though we can no longer find it in the modern mirrors. But we will share with you the background. In olden times, bronze mirrors preceded modern glass mirrors of today, metal mirrors. A bronze mirror typically was round and rather small. In the West, it came with a handle. In East Asia, it came with a knob to hold at the back, or with a loop for a cord or silk or tassel. Some of these mirrors had small stands attached to them, and some also had a hinged protective cover. These were the first surface mirrors, where the immediate bronze surface was flat and plain. It was highly polished to make it reflective, in contrast to the second surface mirrors like modern glass, where the reflection comes from a backing applied to the glass. Now, in these older bronze metal mirrors, as part of the polishing process, these mirrors used to inherit wavy striations created on their metal surface, which were called polishing marks. These were not considered to be disqualifying or undesirable in any way. In fact, they were considered the inherent unique markings of the mirror that became part of the essence of the mirror, became part of the jauhar of the mirror, Jauhar-e-Aaina. Anis Ashfaq का ये शेर, जौहर बगैर कीमत आईना कुछ नहीं, जौहर बगैर कीमत आईना कुछ नहीं, आईना ले भी आए तो जौहर कहाँ से लाएं. Literal and symbolic. Beautiful couplet. The approximate translation is, without these striation, without these polishing marks, the value of the mirror is nothing, is zero. We can get a mirror, but how do we get the marks on it? How do we get the essence on it? How do we get the jauhar on it? Because that jauhar, those polishing marks, is where the rubber meets the road. That is where the manual work goes. That is unique to that mirror. You can get a piece of metal, but you cannot turn it into a mirror without putting that amount of unique, personalized labor and effort in it. So, like I said, great literal meaning, but a very symbolic meaning also. अबरार आज़मी का ये शेर, मैंने कल तोड़ा एक आईना तो महसूस हुआ, मैंने कल तोड़ा एक आईना तो महसूस हुआ, इसमें पोशीदा कोई चीज़ थी जौहर जैसी. What a couplet, right? Approximate translation is, yesterday, when I broke a mirror, I realized that yes, hidden in this mirror, there was something that was similar to Jauhar, that was similar to metal, and not as in metal, as in mettle. I think that's the way it is spelled, but you get the drift. So, Jauhar of the Aina is the edge, is the metal, is the spunk of the mirror. Otherwise, it is just a plain piece of metal, and we are still with the old mirrors, the metal mirrors. Now, mirrors are complex and powerful symbols. They represent introspection, truth, duality, both in myths and art and literature across many cultures. Their reflective surface simultaneously reveals reality and creates an illusion, leading to diverse and sometimes contradictory interpretations. Now, imagine in our couplet, right? Imagine a mirror with such powers is placed in a house of wonder. Can you see the symbiotic effect, the synergy that is going to get created, right? You pick up mirror, which anyways inherently has these powers, and you go ahead and place it in a house of wonder. And not just any common amusement park variety house of wonder, right? But the biggest, the most complex, the most bewildering house of wonder to ever exist, created by the one and only playful, mischievous creator. Can anyone even begin to predict what we would see in this mirror, which is going to be placed in this house of wonder? Can you even comprehend? Ghalib gives us a clue. Ghalib says, you will see Tuuti-e-Bismil. You will see a wounded parrot. Now, that's not a clue. It's more like another twist in the plot. But you cannot scare a Ghalib fan with twists, can you? So, let's get into the final twist of this maze, Tuuti. Tuuti, like we said, is a parrot. The small singing bird, zoological name, Paroquet loxia rosea or Carpodacus erythrinus. Tuuti comes up in Urdu poetry more than once in reference to talking and singing. Parrot is one of those rare, probably only birds that can actually mimic human voice nearly to perfection. In addition to this ability, parrots are wise intellectual birds. All this makes them a great pet to have, and so they have been from age-old times. Right from old royalty to even today, parrots are one of the choicest pets to have. Training a parrot to speak is an art and a science. In olden times, the technique for teaching a parrot to speak was that a man used to place a mirror before the parrot and sit behind the mirror himself. When the man spoke from behind the mirror, the parrot felt that its reflection in the mirror was speaking to it. And in imitation of it, the parrot also began to speak. Now, before we go further, DGMZ would like to put a caveat here for our viewers to note. While parrots can be taught to speak by incorporating mirrors into training, this method is very controversial because it can lead to psychological issues like stress or obsessive behaviors in parrots. A more recommended approach focuses on positive reinforcement through talking, associating words with actions and context, and providing an enriched environment. Though the parrot with its reflection can build their confidence and connection, which can aid in training via mirrors, the primary method for teaching a parrot should always be consistent verbal interaction, praise, and treats. Mirrors are not advisable, not in today's time. Okay, back to a couplet, specifically back to Tuuti. In Urdu poetry, many times parrot symbolizes perfecting speech by rigorous training with one's own self or one's own reflection. Very symbolic. Many a times Urdu poets would claim to either be a parrot who trained to perfection with help of inner self-reflection, or a parrot trainer who hid behind the mirror and without revealing itself played the role of a teacher to the learning parrot. So that is the way the parrot symbolism is used in Urdu poetry. A little complex, and since it doesn't happen anymore, forgotten probably, right? But still, that is playing in the background of this couplet, that mirror training concept. मिर्ज़ा गालिब का ये शेर, हर चंद मैं हूँ तूतिए शिरीं सुखन वाले, आईना आह मेरे मुकाबिल नहीं रहा. The approximate translation is that although I am, because of my perfection in poetry, a parrot who speaks well, but alas, the mirror has been removed from in front of me. Now again, we will not get into the impression, but that is the translation. So, all that background would help reveal the multi-layer parallelism between the copper mirror and the parrot that Ghalib is drawing in this second line. Let's get into that parallelism now. So, mirror. With exposure to weather elements, especially air and humidity, over time, the polishing striations on copper mirrors would turn to a greenish color, a sort of tarnishing, creating a patina or verdigris. Verdigris is a toxic substance formed from copper salts of acetic acid. It develops naturally on copper and its alloys when exposed to air, creating a characteristic turquoise greenish kind of patina. One great example is the Statue of Liberty, which is totally green due to a natural process called oxidation, which has formed a protective green layer or patina on its copper exterior. The statue was originally a reddish brown color, like a new penny, when it was completed in 1886, but the gradual accumulation of copper compounds from exposure to the air and moisture turned it green, with the transformation becoming complete by about 1920. That's a great example of bronze turning brown copper turning green. So, Jauhar-e-Aaina ko Tuuti-e-Bismil baandha. Jauhar-e-Aaina, or the polishing striations of the mirror that had turned green, were tied or compared to the wounded parrot. Bandha here is not actually tying something, bandha here is connecting. So the striations of the copper mirror which had turned green were compared to a wounded parrot. It is a very unusual visual where the bronze mirror striations, which over time have turned green, are looking like a wounded parrot. One could ask, why such a complex parallelism? Well, how else do you capture motion in a bronze mirror? As we know, striations are usually curvy, and such is the nature of the mirror that even a fraction of movement would cause a ripple effect in the visual of these green striations depending on the angle and light. This would create a green, wavy, winding motion on the polished surface of the mirror. And we have seen that, right? Any metal surface which is well polished, so much so that it becomes reflective, even the tiniest movement and the whole landscape of that reflecting surface changes, right? It just transforms. On the other hand, we have a green parrot who is Bismil or wounded. We all know the fluttering and writhing of a wounded bird is most intense, again causing a very rippling, wavy motion, right? That is, my dear viewers, the parallelism Ghalib draws between Jauhar-e-Aaina and Tuuti-e-Bismil in the second line. He says that the polishing marks on the mirror that have over time turned green are being tied or are being connected to the writhing and fluttering of a wounded parrot. Nothing flutters more other than a wounded bird or a fish out of water, right? The way they flutter is unmatched, right? So that is the comparison. And look at this couplet from Mirza Ghalib. क्या बदगुमान है मुझसे कि आईने में मेरे तूती का अक्स समझे है जंगार देखकर. Same vibe, though this one is addressed to the beloved, that how distrustful is the beloved of me, that when she peeps into my mirror in which I am seeing myself, she sees the green polishing marks of the mirror and thinks that it is a parrot. So distrustful of my reflection, of my mirror, that though she knows these are mirror polishing marks that have turned green, she thinks or believes that this is a parrot. Alright, so that takes care of the second line, Jauhar-e-Aaina ko Tuuti-e-Bismil baandha. Now, we will take a minute or two to look at this couplet in totality, because it's not a couplet that can be explained easily. We are trying our best here. Trust us on that. Okay, so like we said in the beginning, many have discarded this couplet as having too many elements thrown in a green pot that makes little to no sense, right? Well, visually at DGMZ, we are convinced that the parallelism between the mirror and the wounded parrot is evident. Once you have the background context of the old metal bronze mirrors that could turn green and the parrot training through mirrors. It is the intangible, the metaphorical meaning which is elusive, the submerged iceberg. Is it even there? We did question that. Is it even there? There is no concrete way to prove it. But having said that, here is what we at DGMZ think are some other unsaid, hidden, submerged concepts that are playing in the background. We'll be very keen to know from you in the comments whether you related to this or not. Do share with us. So, first concept. At DGMZ, we can almost see Ghalib smile as he watches Ahl-e-Binash, this creme de la creme, elite group of people who are wise and intellectual and insightful. They struggle to make sense of this wonder house called world. We think it's Ghalib's way of saying some things in this world are beyond analysis, beyond logic, beyond assessment. You cannot rationalize them, right? No matter how wise you think you are, no matter how astute you think you are, Ahl-e-Binash, once you are inside this house of wonder, which is created by coquetry and mischievousness of the creator himself, it is very difficult for you to figure it out. Second concept. In parallel, Ghalib, true to his style, both praises and complains to the creator, who has almost played mischief with his people by creating this bewildering wonder house that we call world, where we have to live and experience it. We have to live in it, we have to experience it. आपके लिए तो एक हैरत कदा हुआ, हमारे लिए तो जिंदगी हो गई ना पूरी. हमें तो जीना पड़ा ना इसको, हमें तो इसको एक्सपीरियंस करना पड़ गया. आपने तो खेल खेल में बना दिया डॉल हाउस, पर इसमें रहना तो हमको पड़ा ना. That wife comes through. Third one, the way Ghalib goes to the ends of earth. Ghalib goes to the ends of earth to create a visual to capture movement in green. All he wants to capture is movement in green. But the type of effort he puts in it, like we said, the way he goes to the ends of the earth, that is mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. One sits back and wonders, so much hard work, so much imagination, so many concepts, just to ensure that he captures the right movement at the right intensity in the right color. Some might call it an overkill. We call it stroke of a genius. No stone unturned. I have to give my readers a visual that is mind-blowing, that is captivating, that is mesmerizing, that is mysterious, and yet that is enlightening. So much hard work just to capture movement in green. Nothing is too small and nothing is too big for a genius. Everything is doable. Everything will be done. No stone will remain unturned. Next concept, Jauhar. Jauhar was a very pivotal word, right? Now, the way Jauhar contrasts with the parrot is in a class of its own. It's more than one ways. So, the first way, Jauhar on its own, without connecting it with Aina or mirror. Jauhar on its own is very commonly associated with a sword, a weapon to slay and kill. The Jauhar, Jauhar-e-Teg, right? The Jauhar of a sword is a very commonly quoted concept in Urdu poetry, where it talks about the edge of the sword, its essence, its metal, its ability, its identity, right? And how Jauhar is contrasted. So the actual thing is Jauhar-e-Aaina. So the actual thing is Jauhar. But the actual thing is sword, the edge, the ability to kill, the ability to slay. But the way it is reflecting to Ahl-e-Binash is a wounded parrot. The weapon is reflecting as a wound in this house of wonder. Second, if you talk about Jauhar with specific reference to mirror, again, as we now know, usually mirror will reflect a talking and practicing and singing parrot, since that's the way parrots behave in front of the mirror. But in the house of wonder, the mirror is showing the image of a wounded parrot, by extension a silent parrot. So for the ones who say that this thing doesn't make sense, our explanation is, well, he has invited you in a house of wonder. What did you expect? You would be disappointed if in this house of wonder you were seeing things which were making sense, which were logical, which were rational. That's not what the house of wonder is about. That's not what this world is about. Right? All in all, Ghalib seems to invite you in the biggest house of wonders to be ever created by the one and only creator, and then shows you how, no matter how wise and insightful you might think you are, you can get fooled. You can get hoodwinked. You can be mistaken. What you see is not what it is, and what it is not what you see. And then निदा फाजली का ये शेर, दुनिया जिसे कहते हैं जादू का खिलौना है, दुनिया जिसे कहते हैं जादू का खिलौना है, मिल जाए तो मिट्टी है, खो जाए तो सोना है. Again, the approximate translation is, this thing that we call world is a magical toy. If you get it, it is worth dust. And if you don't get it, it is worth gold. If you get it, it is dust. If you don't get it, it is gold. It's a magical toy. So I think Ghalib, in his unique style, right, has given us a nice peep into the house of wonder we call world, with a warning that things will not make sense, and what you see is not what's there, and what's there is not what you can see. So be careful, don't be fooled in this wonder house called world. So that brings us to the end of the DGMZ impression. Now, we would like to let our viewers know that many interpreters have explained this couplet from the beloved's perspective, where she is the house of wonder and her mischievous playfulness and coquetry makes the group of these wise people see different, almost opposite things. We at DGMZ felt more strongly about God and his house of wonder called world being the focus in this couplet, and hence that's what we built our impression on. But the fact of the matter is, the couplet will make sense both ways, whether you go the beloved route or you go the route of considering it God's house of wonder. And that is the genius of Ghalib. There, right there, is the genius of Ghalib. Now, today we will end this episode with a short poem by Edgar Allan Poe. You must have heard it, it's a famous one. We think it captures the vibe of today's couplet very well. So, allow us to narrate it for you. This is how it goes. A Dream Within a Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. Take this kiss upon the brow, and in parting from you now, thus much let me avow. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet, if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we see or seen is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep. While I weep. O God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. We, as always, will be very keen to hear your feedback, comments. I know this was a strange couplet. Let us know what you thought about the impression. Let us know if it sat well with you. Also, let us know if you thought the beloved version of it would have been better. For the new viewers, a strong recommendation to access the episode titled Introduction to DGMZ, because it will give you a good insight into the motivation and inspiration behind this podcast. For our regular viewers, whenever you have time, do visit the homepage of the channel. Multiple playlists segregated by topics, surf through the episodes and pick something that interests you. If you can, join us on the Facebook page that we have created for DGMZ. Also, interact with us on the community tab. Like I said in the previous episode, do check our page and the community tab every day. We almost post every day the share of the day, bites on Wednesdays. So don't want you to miss out on that. Now allow me to go ahead and close this episode by sending a lot of love and light to all you dear viewers, and thanks for watching.